Well, good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully, you're enjoying the good weather that we have out there in this August summer day. And we have a wonderful guest joining us today. We're going to spend about an hour and a bit here on the conversations with Dune and Friends. And my name is Dune Wynn, and today we're going to have Mr. Colin McDonald joining us. So before we have Colin join us on stage here to really have this conversation with myself and with you, in fact, through your comments that you can provide, I'd like to maybe run through a quick introduction so you know a little bit more about Colin before we hear from him. Now, Colin, I assume you can still hear me in the green room there, my friend? Wonderful. So, Colin was born and raised in the Yukon Territory. In 2000, he moved to Edmonton to pursue a university degree, and Colin learned to play guitar starting at the age of 10. Since then, he has been in many different bands and musical projects. Now, currently, at the age of 5, in fact, at the age of 5, Colin completely lost his sight. And this, however, did not slow him down at all. Now, with the help of his trusty seeing eye dog, Powell, Colin leads an active, successful life. Currently, Colin plays guitar in 3 active bands: the Colin McDonald Band, a high-energy 3-piece blues rock band, the James Beaudry Band, an original hard rock band, and Mindwiser, an all-original country and folk rock band. So some of Colin's interests outside of music include woodworking, ham radio, as well as fixing cars and trucks. He's a multi-talented man, our friend Colin here. So with that brief introduction, folks, please help me in welcoming our guest today, Mr. Colin McDonald. How are you doing today, Colin?
Doing great. How are you doing, Dune?
Good. So let me see here. I see already Stephanie, our friend Stephanie Harp already chimed in, and she said, Colin is incredible. And that's all in uppercase, my friend. You know how long it takes to go cap locks? Not just,
Yeah.
So Colin is incredible, she says. And thank you, Stephanie. And so are
Thanks,
you, my
Stephanie.
friend. So are you, Stephanie. And so tell us more, Colin. So that I presume that our viewers can hear us out there. Tell us more about what got you here, Colin. Maybe expand on the introduction a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So, let's see. Okay, an hour of talking about myself. How are we going to do
Yeah.
this? So, yeah, based on some of the stuff that you read there at the top, yeah, I was born in the Yukon Territory and spent my youth there for the most part. We did move out a couple times because my dad was a truck driver and used to work for the Faro mine, which is a lead zinc operation up in Faro, Yukon, and the mine would tend to go through cycles of going great guns for years, and then all of a sudden the price of lead and zinc would drop, and they would have to shut the mine down. So that happened a couple times, and we ended up moving out to Abbotsford, BC, which is in the Lower Mainland, not too far from Vancouver. Partially for work, but also because at that time was when I was starting to lose my sight, and we needed to be closer to the Children's Hospital in Vancouver to be close to the major surgeons and doctors and things that were more available in Vancouver than they certainly were in the Yukon, of course. For some context, the Yukon at that time had about 29,000 people in the whole territory, and about 23 to 24,000 of those were in Whitehorse, the capital city. And so we didn't really have much access to medical care, especially specialized medical care, such as for eyes and retinas and things like that, which was the issues that I was having was with my retinas. And so we moved down to Abbotsford, and we proceeded to I proceeded to go through many different surgeries and laser surgeries and things like that to try and repair the issues with my retinas. which was not successful at that time. This was, again, 1985 or so. And they were just starting to come up with some new procedures and ideas and theories about fixing retinas, specifically the type of condition that I have, which is where the retina is very weak and it tears. And then also the vitreal fluid drains away from the back of my eye because it's a genetic condition that does that. So what ends up happening is there's no support for the retina, and so it just tears off. Anyway, we stayed there for a couple of years, and then moved back to the Yukon when didn't look like there's any more that the doctors could do for me, and so we moved back up there, and then we moved out again in 1993 to Cranbrook, BC, in the Kootenays there, and we stayed there for I think 2 or 3 years, 3 years I think, and that was 100% for work. My dad had gotten laid off from his job, and so we went down there. We had some family and things in Cranbrook, so we went and stayed with them for a bit while he found a job, and then stayed there. And then we moved back up to the Yukon again. Now, if anybody's ever been to the Yukon or heard about people from the Yukon, you probably heard that the Yukon has a magic spell on people that have ever lived there, and they have to always go back at some point or other. The spell of the Yukon, they call it. Well, Robert Service called it that. But anyway, we went back again, and then we stayed there for 4 years, and I graduated high school there in the year 2000. And the Yukon being so small, it's got one community college, and the community college there was not really set up very well for accessibility, shall we say. So in other words, post-secondary education for someone with a visual impairment or who was totally blind like myself. They just weren't set up for creating things like Braille textbooks or audio textbooks, for creating exams in Braille or anything like that. And so we came to Edmonton, my family, my parents and I came to Edmonton in 2002 so that I could pursue a degree at Grant MacEwan at the time. It was actually a Bachelor of Arts transfer program at Grant MacEwan, because Grant MacEwan actually wasn't a university at the time in 2000. They still called it Grant MacEwan Community College, if anybody can remember that far back, GMCC. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I never did end up going to the University of Alberta. I decided I would go off and get married instead, and kind of do the house husband thing, I guess you might call it these days. And so we did that for a couple of years, and ended up going back to Grant MacEwan for a human resource management diploma in 2005. So that was a 2-year program, and so I was human resource management diploma. I have that now. And then as far as education and stuff goes, I've done various other things along the way, some arbitration management stuff and conflict resolution, that kind of thing. And basically stayed in Edmonton since, obviously, 2000. Edmonton's now home. I've been here longer than anywhere else I've ever lived, so it's pretty much home. Although, when I talk about home, I still refer to the Yukon to some extent. So it's always kind of with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much as far as background history goes. That's on that side of it anyway. That's most of it.
Cool. So question, Colin, tell us more about your experience with sight loss. Was it very sudden or was it gradual?
Yeah, so it was both. If it can be both. So basically what happened, from what I can recall, and what, of course, I've been told after the fact, like, bear in mind I was about 4 when it started to happen, and so I remember some things, but not everything. My parents had started noticing some oddities with my ability to see things when I was maybe 3.5. And then there was an incident where I fell off a bunk bed and hit my head on a dresser when I was 3.5. And I had a concussion. And after that, there was more of the issues with them noticing, my parents noticing that I couldn't see things properly. So they took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, "No, there's nothing wrong. I can't find anything." It's kind of a small town quack, I guess you
Yeah.
could call
Wow.
it. and so, my mom didn't know any better at that time. And so she said, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with him. And when you live in the Yukon, you either fly out or you drive out. In other words, it's 1,600 miles from Vancouver, give or take.
Yeah.
And you can jump on a plane and fly out, or you can drive out. And we often drove down the Alaska Highway. And it was a 2 or 3 day trip. Sorry, my phone's... There we go. 2 or 3 day trip down the highway. So we jumped in the car. After we saw the doctor, jumped in the car, and, her thinking nothing's wrong with me, started heading down the highway. Well, we got about halfway, and all of a sudden, my sight just disappeared. It went. I can actually remember sitting... We're in an old 1984 Grand Caravan, and wasn't old at that time, but it is now, I suppose.
Yeah.
And we're driving down the highway, and all of a sudden, I remember looking out, at the windshield and looking at the hood, and all of a sudden, I couldn't see. And it was just like, that was sudden. That was the first time that had happened.
Wow.
And we ended up in Smithers, and an emergency flight from Smithers to Vancouver. And I was in to see the surgeon, the specialist, immediately to find out what was going on. And that's when they determined that both of my retinas had detached at that point. Okay,
Wow.
so there's that background. And then what ended up happening after that was that they were semi-successful in reattaching several different times. So I had sight on and off for a little while, but it would be like, I could ride my bike and I could see fine, and then all of a sudden I wouldn't be able to see. Like, for instance, we lived in this house where in the backyard there was like a set of stairs that went down to the basement door. Okay.
Yeah.
And I can remember riding my bike around the backyard, and I could see no problem. And I went to park my bike underneath our deck. The deck was maybe 5 or 6 feet tall. So I went to ride my bike to park it, but I ended up going down the stairs instead because I couldn't see. I thought I was seeing one thing and I was seeing something completely different. So I ended up, going down the outside stairs to the basement door. So things like that started to happen more and more often, and they tried to use laser technology to basically re-weld the retina back on by creating tons of scar tissue and things like that to weld it back on. And they tried scleral buckles, which is where they basically try to sew it back together with these little microscopic buckles. And they tried silicone oil to revive the vitreal fluid, which kept draining away and things, but nothing really worked. So that, like I said, there was times when I would see fine, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't. And then there's other times when I would see fine, and then it would come and go and come and go and come and go. So that was all between the ages of 4 to 5 to 6. By the time I was 5.5, it was pretty much gone. They weren't able to bring it back in any way, shape, or form.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story, my friend, because it's always important for us to understand some of the challenges that folks face. And for you, my friend, you have, in my mind, overcome that in spades in terms of really, as I mentioned in the introduction, living a very successful and productive and active life, and frankly, with a very positive attitude as well. And in addition to that, every time I would read your post on social media, every time we would chat, I always see this really bright and clear thinking coming out of you, my friend. So congratulations for not allowing that obviously significant life challenge to deter you from doing what you need to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a perspective. I think I have a naturally positive perspective in life. Both of my parents do as well. They're both very positive, intelligent people that ask questions and think and are intellectual. I grew up, right from the time I was born, I was read to aloud, and my mom and dad both would read, Robert Service. He's a very famous poet that lived in the Yukon, and I'm sure you know who that is. And my mom would read Robert Service to me right from the time I was, born, basically. So, there's a lot of research and a lot of studies that say that, reading to an infant, reading to kids when they're young like that helps them it helps their brain to develop, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was lucky to have that. And then of course, some education along the way never hurts.
Yeah.
To spend a lot of money in college and things like that to be able to think clearly and to be able to post on social media in a comprehensive fashion. But going back to the other thing too, I'm very thankful that both of my parents and the people that were around us at the time when I was losing my sight and after I lost my sight, they didn't have a lot of preconceived notions about what somebody with a disability should or shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my parents and our family had never really been around anybody with a disability, so they didn't have ideas about how things should or shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I wasn't sheltered, I wasn't coddled, I wasn't told I couldn't do this or told I couldn't do that. I mean, I could do anything I wanted to if I was interested in it, and as long as it was done in a safe manner,
Yeah.
I mean, I was woodworking when I was 7 or 8 years old with my dad, because my dad is kind of a handyman, jack of all trades when it comes to carpentry and woodworking and things like that. And I was really very interested in it, always curious about things, always had a lot of curiosity for things. And he would show me how to do certain things. I mean, as much as a 7 or 8 year old can do, but I was using power tools when I was that age.
Wow.
And safely, of course, he would show me how to use them and explain to me the dangers of using certain power tools and that I could get hurt. The odd thing would happen. I would cut myself or, something would happen. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, it happens. Growing up in the Yukon is a little bit different than growing up in a big city. Mm-hmm. As far as it's kind of like growing up on the farm. You know what I mean? Like things happen and you just move on and you don't let it kind of slow you down. If it's very much different to today. If a kid gets a cut on their finger or they get an owie or something like that, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world for parents and child. And don't you ever do that again, or I'll never let you do that again because you got hurt. Well, when I was a kid, that wasn't the case. You got hurt, you got back up and you did it again, and just made sure you did it right the next time so you didn't get hurt.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to loop back when you were providing an expanded intro there with the background. There were some other comments that came in after Stephanie Harp that I want to make sure you are aware of. Mm-hmm. So our friend, Mr. Tony Roofer, when you were doing that, he said, "Hey, McDonald, you rock," he says. And Tony, actually, Scott says he can see you and you're looking good. So Scott, is it Gagnon, or how do you pronounce the last name? Ginion. Yep. So Scott Ginion says, looking good, my friend. And of course, Sean Parks, our friend Sean Parks, chimed in and say, "Hey, Colin, how's the summer been?"
It's been excellent so far. Now that we're actually having a summer, buddy, it is awesome.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit. In this summer right now, how many bands are you rehearsing with and maybe doing something for getting ready to maybe have an opportunity to play live again? I know you're working on at least one band right now actively, but you're probably active at 2 or 3 of them at the moment. Yeah.
So for the last probably 10 to 15 years, I've had multiple projects on the go at any given point. I like to be very busy. I like to be active, especially musically. Mm-hmm. And I like to have different musical projects going at the same time. So, whether it's a rock and blues project with country or even funk or R&B kind of stuff. I like to have different genres of bands, basically. Mm-hmm. And right now, currently, I've got 3 that are actively rehearsing, 2 that are actively gigging, and so we have the Colin McDonald Band. We're trying to get as many gigs as we possibly can. We've literally had 1 so far this year. After March anyway. Mm-hmm. So since COVID came down, we've had 1 gig, and it was an outside birthday party for some friends of ours on an acreage. So that was back in the beginning of July. So we have played out. We were booked for a couple other things, but of course, things got canceled and whatever. And then the James Beaudry Band, we actually just played last Saturday. out at another acreage out by Millet, and we were hired through an agency to go do that, another private birthday party kind of thing. So that's pretty much the only kind of gigs we're able to do at this point are on private property or on acreages where people can maintain good social distancing and things like that. And so, I mean, as far as gig ready and gigging, 2 bands, but the third band, Mindwiser, there's more recording and songwriting that goes on in that band than there is necessarily gigging, even during times when we can gig. We don't do a lot of shows, but we write a lot and we record quite a bit. Scott is fortunate enough to have some very nice space available to him, a studio that he can utilize at any time he wants, and so we get in there sometimes and we record and we write things and we create songs and things like that. So that's kind of fills for me at least, it fills that niche of the creative side of it, as well as the sort of the country rock folk. It's hard to explain what Mindwiser is. It's kind of like Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and Pink Floyd mixed together in a very awesome, beautiful way with a bit of Alberta twang country built into it. Yeah. Scott's probably laughing right now at my description, but that's basically what it is. We have songs that go from kind of a psychedelic Pink Floyd kind of thing all the way to get your cowboy boots on and go, kick something in the field. It's good stuff. Yeah.
So it sounds like you have a pretty ideal mix, to be honest, because if all of your bands are gigging live all of the time, you're lacking a little bit of the other side of your creativity. So to have some bands that are really focused on live gigging, do some recording here and there and whatnot, but then another band that is really focused on more of a recording and writing and whatnot. So you have an ideal mix there, it sounds like, my friend.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We can get a little bit crazy busy sometimes, especially if we have, if I'm rehearsing with all 3 bands each week. We try to have weekly rehearsals, and so I have a rehearsal space at my house. So
nice.
Two of the bands rehearse here, and then we rehearse with Mindwiser at Mindwiser headquarters. But it can get a little bit crazy sometimes if we're rehearsing and gigging on the weekends or during the week. Trying to schedule everything together, and then sometimes I'm even crazier and I throw another a 4th project into the mix, because people want me to play with them and build bands and stuff sometimes, and so I can never tell them no. And then of course everything gets a little bit too busy sometimes. I like to be busy, but sometimes it's okay. I don't want to rehearse this week. I just want to hang out and have a beer and drink and have a barbecue and not have to worry about rehearsing every night. But
hey, I want to highlight a few comments from our viewers. Trista Lee, I suppose, says, "Hi, Colin." And she says, "You guys rock it." Now, of course, we know Trista is James Beaudry's significant other, if I'm correct about that.
Oh yeah, it's much better half. Yes.
And then we have Sean Parks chimed in again here. Glad you're having a good summer now that it's arrived, and let me know when you're playing next, and I'll try and make it down with Cole. So you have some fans and friends out there watching and chiming in there, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I actually first met Sean not too long ago. Actually, of course, I've heard Cole many times, and for those of you who don't know, Cole's a young and up and coming guitar player who has graced us at the open jams a few times, and he's amazing. I wish I was at that level when I was his age. I'm jealous that it took me 20 years to kind of get to that point, but I got to meet Cole's dad, Sean, at we were at an outside jam not too long ago with Stevie Mac, Steve McLaughlin, one of the best harmonica players in Edmonton, and he was hosting a backyard party about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, and was able to meet Sean there and hang out and chat a little bit. So that was good.
Yeah, that's great, my friend. I'm just gonna pull up one of your band sites, and we're gonna look at all three. But the first one I want to pull up is the Colin McDonald Band. I'm gonna bring up the really the Facebook page. So tell us about that. What might people find on there? I see some videos, I see some photos, I see. Tell us about that band page there, my friend.
Yeah. So I think no, this is bad because I haven't even looked at that page in a little while. I mean, it's like it's almost like COVID has made everything out of sight, out of mind. But anyway,
Yeah.
I've got to get somebody who's really good at social media, and I think I know a guy.
Hmm.
I think his name starts with a T and ends with a Y and rhymes with Tony. But anyway,
There you go.
he's good at the social media thing. Anyways, um, on that page is the Colin McDonald Band has been an entity, I suppose, for 4 or 5 years, maybe.
Mhm.
It was always sort of an entity in various, like there was a couple other band names and different bands that I was in before, and then I decided at one point that I would just do the Colin McDonald Band because I was always having to hire and fire guys that I was with anyway. So I thought, oh, I might as well make it under my own name. Then I can just go out as an artist and hire whoever I want if I need to, kind of thing. So it was a kind of sort of a business decision more than anything else. But the current lineup that we have there is Tyson Wells on drums and Maury Jarvis on bass guitar.
Mhm.
And it's a 3-piece. And the band page, you'll find some videos, some photos, and also if you like the page, you'll be notified of any upcoming events and gigs that we're doing. We always post up there whenever we're doing any kind of public gig at a club or a bar or a festival or anything else like that. We always post up there, so keep your eyes on that. Coming up, hopefully, of course, nobody really knows at this point when it's up, when it's going to actually start up again or whatever. But keep your eyes on that one to see
Yeah.
what's going on with the band. I do post updates once in a while. In fact, I should probably go and post an update now that you've reminded me about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Hey,
let
I was
people know
going
what's
to
going on.
say that Mr. Tony Ruffo had heard. I'm sure he's out there watching because he's just commenting here. He says, "You play the Uptown Blues Jam regularly as a soloist too, and thanks for that." Now, you mentioned his name there, Tony, earlier about social media and being good at it. So I think he heard you already, my friend. You don't even have to make that call. Your
No,
bat signal
I
has been
know, I
sent.
know. I'll be getting a call after this is done. Hey, buddy. Yeah.
So Trista says, yeah, they're just enjoying it here. Tony says, haha, I'm in. So he's in. I'm going to play a video clip from your uh, Facebook page here. It's the one video that's being featured here. It's CMB supports Edmonton Band-Aid and Little
Okay.
Warrior. Anything to share about that before I
Yeah.
play?
Sure. Little Warrior Band Aid is a annual event. Unfortunately, didn't occur this year, but I don't even remember how many there's been. Maybe 5, 6, 7. There's been a bunch of them. And it was originally started by Warren Salampa, who essentially wanted to give some money to a charity, Little Warriors specifically, and wanted to have a big party with a bunch of musicians and a bunch of his friends and things like that, and make it into a yearly thing. So it's become a yearly thing. Every year, it's at a large venue in Edmonton. It's the last couple of years, it's been at the Masons Hall. I think it's the Masons Hall downtown. And essentially, what it is, it's a whole day of bands, local bands that play, and they do a big pig roast and an auction and stuff like that. And then all the proceeds that are raised is given to the Little Warriors organization. And it's been quite successful over the last couple of years. And so we were asked to play. We've been there a couple times, maybe 2 or 3 times. We've gone and played there. So
You
yeah,
bet.
don't even remember hearing this particular video. So it was
Yeah.
new for me too.
You bet. So be a refresher for you. Now,
Yeah.
before I hit play, I just want to say that Tracy Wells chimed in again. Says, "Hi, Colin. Looking forward to when we can catch up again. Say hi to Powell for me, your dog, your seeing
Yeah.
eye dog, trusty seeing eye dog." So we got Mike, Mr. Mike Chenoweth here chimed in. Howdy, Colin. And Sean Park says, thank you for those very kind words about Cole's guitar playing, Colin. And it scares me where he will be in a couple of years, considering he's only been playing for 5 to 6 years. So, yeah, definitely a shining star for being such a young age. I'm going to hit play here, my friend. Let me know if you can hear the sound.
Okay.
Cool.
Hey, I'm
Yeah.
Colin McDonald from the Colin McDonald Band, and I love Edmonton Band-Aid.
The
Cool.
the ad spot. Yes. Oh, we got no audio there, Dune.
Sorry about that. In terms of the video, you can hear me now, I presume?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. In terms of videos, perhaps we'll go onto your own personal profile to see more videos. But there's a lot of photos here. And again, when you play live, my friend, how does that? I mean, obviously, you set up and you do all of that. Is there any interesting kind of tidbit that you want to share about? The special arrangement you have to do to make it work playing live and on stages?
Yeah. So one thing we didn't touch on is I also have a hearing. I'm hearing impaired, of all things, which for a blind person is can be challenging to say the best. But I do wear hearing aids, and I have since I was 6 years old, and I have about a 50 to 60% hearing loss in both ears. With the hearing aids, it brings up to near normal, and I can hear everything, and I like it loud, and it doesn't really bother me. I don't think about it too much anymore. As far as special arrangements, okay, let's see. Well, always have a good roadie handy to pack the gear in. I don't mind packing my own gear, but it can be a little bit tough on tables and chairs and other people who don't get out of the way quickly enough when I'm packing it into a bar. So it's always nice to have somebody who's willing to. Oh, hang on.
Oh, no worries.
Get that back up.
Yeah.
That's there we go.
That's the music stand. Not wanting to do his duty today.
That's right. There we go. Is the shot okay here?
We're good. We're back.
Okay.
We're back.
Yeah, I've got this. My phone's on a music stand in front of me, and it's very close, and I accidentally tapped one of the legs of the music stand, and of course the phone went flying.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, where was it? Oh yeah, so it's nice to have somebody available, either a band member, or a lot of times I've got a few friends that are very, very, very nice people to call up and me give them a couple beers, and they'll pack my big heavy tube amps in and out of the venue for me. As far as like actually on stage playing, it comes down to like my orientation skills. In other words, my ability to understand what's around me in my environment, and kind of get a mental image of my surroundings is very, very good. And so for me, getting onto a stage, as long as I know the size of it or the general shape of the stage, which I will generally go and find that before we even set up, I'll take a walk or a crawl around the stage to kind of get the layout of it. And then once we start setting up, usually the drummer sets up first. Pretty standard stuff. The drummer sets up, we set up around the drummer, but I'll have my mic position set up, and I'll have somebody let me know if it's a good spot to have my mic position set up, or my pedal board position. Then I will quite often I'll use a headset microphone on stage, because it's that way I don't have to try and locate the vocal mic, especially if I'm dancing around or pedal dancing or moving around. Not being able to see the microphone on the stand, with it being basically up in the midair, can be a little bit difficult sometimes if you're moving around. So I like to use a headset, and then it's always right there.
Yeah. So you make some special provisions for the kind of the dynamics there, and manage it, and Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm just going to go on to your website, your personal profile on Facebook
Mhm.
here, my friend, and I'm going to go to really video section of your thing here. And is there any particular video that you wouldn't want me to show, or is it fairly fair game if it's on the?
It's all fair game. It's a public profile, so everything on there is fair game. I decided a long time ago that if I was going to be on Facebook or any social media, that anything I put up there, I would have to be able to show my mother or my grandmother, and so everything up there is pretty much good to go. And there's nothing up there that I wouldn't want anybody
Yeah.
and their dog to be able to see.
Wonderful.
And, I don't know what the quality is going to be like on any of those videos, but yeah. There. Again, well, I need a social media guy.
Yeah. You have more videos of you than by you, which makes sense. So I'm going to I'm going to click play on just one of the videos here, my friend, and it looks like a fairly recent video. So I'm going to hit play here, and.
So do you want to play some songs? Yeah, okay, actually, why not? Which guy we're on? So up next is what's it called? The Swampy Bayou something?
Oh yeah.
Swampy Bottom. We're gonna play this one. You guys like the blues?
I must say, my friend, that is a very full sound for a trio.
Yeah, well, that's all acoustic right there, and I was trying to remember where that was and when that was, because I really, I mean, I know I did it. Obviously, it's on video, but I don't remember what we're doing or why we were playing all acoustic like that.
Right. Now, it was a video by Angie Zamaro, so I believe you know her.
Yeah, I might know her. Yeah, fairly well, actually.
So now, if Angie happened to be watching, she can maybe remind us or remind you where this was. But acoustic. What I note about you is that when you play acoustic, you stay true to the acoustic thing. But when you do your solo and whatnot, it's you fly through there as if it's just an electric guitar. You do all of the, lots of harmony on your strings and all that kind of stuff too. Hey.
Yeah. So acoustic playing is very interesting because it's a combination of letting the guitar ring and sing, and also trying to make it do the things that you're used to doing on electric, because I'm primarily an electric player. I don't play acoustic a lot. And so of course my natural instinct is to go and bend the strings and try for those big solos and things like that. And of course on acoustic it's like, sure, if you have hands like a gorilla, maybe you could do it. But and I mean I have strong hands, but at a certain point it's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do a 2-step bend on the G string. There's just no way. Yeah. And if I do, it's going to snap. So I don't want that to happen. But yeah, it's kind of like a balance between getting the single note solo going, but also throwing in some chordal voicings or some sixths or thirds or fourths or fifths or whatever it is that you're going to do on top of it, because really that's where the acoustic shines, is when it's like you said, the harmonic richness of the guitar has to come out. And so the more strings you use at the same time, the better that's going to sound. So you kind of got to on the fly. And I'm primarily an improvisational player. I play certain things that sort of give the listener the idea of the original song, because I do play a lot of covers. So I try and stay true to the cover, to the original solo, but I don't play exactly what they're playing. So I'll play like little pieces of it, like in the Stevie Ray Vaughan song, for instance, that we just heard. There's a little riff that he does in the beginning of the solo, which I do as well, and then from there I build it into something different. And it's got nothing to do with not being able to learn the solo note for note or whatever. It's more about, okay, this is what I feel, this is how I want to play it. I'm going to play it kind of my own way. And I do that with 99% of the songs that I play. I literally just rip the solo out from whatever I'm feeling at that particular moment. It's all improvisational playing. So very few lead lines or solos that I play are written or preconceived.
Yeah. Well, again, you make that strategic decision, and we all have to make different decisions because those decisions really affect how everything else goes, right? So obviously you're clear about that. You want to be your own and not trying to imitating that one solo exactly the way the original person played and whatnot. That's just a different game, right? Now, Mr. Riel Fagnon chimed in here. Of course, Riel is one of the fantastic guitar players in Edmonton and anywhere, to be honest. But he says, hey, Colin. And he says, Colin is a smoking guitar player. And he goes on to say, and a great singer too. So lots of good respect and admiration for you from the wonderful music community we have here in Edmonton and beyond, my friend. Tell us about this clip. I don't know if you might remember this clip. I'll tell you, it's a very long clip, so we're going to play just a little bit of it. But it says, when was this? This was 2 years ago. It was the James Beaudry Band at the Crossing Red Deer. Does that ring a bell?
Yep, sure does. The audio is not going to be really good on this one. It was how do I put this? Very loud.
Oh, okay. Well, I can play another video. There's plenty of videos on.
Play whatever you want. I'm just it's just more that the audio might be a little bit clippy and loud.
Right. Here's one from what is it now? Shakers Roadhouse, and I'm gonna play it, and you can tell me what this is about after.
Sure. Yep.
Do a great job. He's a hell of a plank spanker in his own right too. Yeah. So once these boys are ready, I'm ready. Born ready. Where's that Beaudry? I don't hear him.
There you are with your Explorer guitar.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. So what's this song all about, James? What are we gonna do here?
This one is all about where I want to go, who I want to become, all the places I've love to go.
Is this one on your EP?
This one is on the EP.
Hey Jerry, can I get a look like James and my mother have none of them at all? So I can't have your James Harley. There we go. Let's go, man.
Oh yeah! Alright, well, we're back. We're gonna rock and roll a little bit louder. And I want to take it out to the land of Hollywood.
Let's do something for the police.
I know this place I gotta be.
Fantastic. So let me ask you, do you have a favorite guitar? I know you play lots of different guitar styles. In this case, it was Gibson Explorer or Epiphone or whatever have you. Is there a favorite guitar style that you like? Strat?
Yeah, Strat's my main Fender Stratocaster or any copy thereof. That's one definitely my favorite guitar. I find it the most flexible because I play so many different genres of music, from country to blues to rock to funk to whatever, metal sometimes. The Strat seems to do it all. So I have my favorite style is like a Strat with a humbucker in it. So you get the good rock tone, but also nice blues tones and stuff out of it. But I also like to use the appropriate guitar for the music as well. So if I'm playing blues, I'm on a Strat. If I'm in with the James Beaudry Band, I'm often on either a Les Paul or an Explorer. I really like that Explorer. That's a 58, basically copy of a 58 Explorer Carina body, so it's nice and light, and it plays really, really fast and really, really well. It's a funny shape and everything, and it's kind of awkward at first when you first get put it on, but it really screams that guitar, as you can tell from that video. And we were really quite loud at Shakers, although we had an excellent sound guy. Jerry Lutz was doing a sound that night, and he sounded really, really good. So yeah,
Yeah.
big Explorer for that. But yeah, like, I mean, I've got Strats and Les Pauls and Tellys and a couple Explorers, and really rocking a Reverend guitar right now, which is it's kind of a Les Paul Telecaster combination. It's got DNA from both in there. It's called the Double Agent, and yeah, it works really good for pretty much anything. I can take that guitar out in any gig, and it sounds great.
Nice. Hey, Mr. James Beaudry from the James Beaudry Band have chimed in here. He says, hello, Colin and Dune. So you got some friends watching and commenting here along the way. Let me ask you this question, though, before we get on to more videos and whatnot. When you think about all of the different genre of music that you play, what's your favorite? If there was one that you said, I can play that sort of all night. Is there one like that? Is it rock? Is it blues? Is it hard rock? Is it country? What's your kind of top of mind there?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because at one point in my life, I would have said hard rock or grunge, because when I was growing up, my formative years, shall we say, were in the 90s, late 90s. And so, bands like Creed and even Metallica back then, with the Load and the Reload stuff, Garage Inc. There was a lot of that going on, a lot of like post grunge kind of stuff, or post alternative, maybe you could call it. Alice in Chains was still around. Obviously Nirvana was gone, but I mean, Nirvana was one of the bands that was hugely influential on me. Foo Fighters, like all those. The biggest bands at the time, let's say between 96 and 2000 were kind of what I was listening to. And that's, at 15, 16, 17 years old, when I was really getting into guitar and stuff. Those are the guys I was playing along with and songs I was learning.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the roots of my playing. Now, go back even further to when I first started out. Like, my parents are both into country music, and certainly were back then. And my dad, was always playing George Jones and Johnny Cash and guys like that. So country was very much a part of my childhood and growing up. So I learned a lot of that, and it's naturally in my head for country. And I'm getting to the point eventually here, but for me, the kind of music that I can play all night long and just I can really dig into. Man. It's a hard one. That's a hard one. Probably blues and rock. That would be the closest I can get. So like, stuff like classic rock, for instance. I can get into classic rock, and I can play that stuff all night long, or even like the James Beaudry Band style stuff, like that AC/DC kind of meets the Foo Fighters bluesy rock, hard bluesy rock, shall we say? That's fun to play, because it's all in A, and it's all fun to play.
I'm surprised to hear it's all in A. Is that really true?
Well, that's kind of an inside joke with James, because I know he's listening. But a lot of James. Okay, that song that we heard, by the way, called "Land of Hollywood," that's written by James Beaudry, and maybe he had some help on it. I don't know, but he wrote it, and he's written a bunch of songs. We actually have an EP out. With 7 songs, original songs that were written and recorded, and that was one of them. So like when he writes stuff, maybe not so much anymore, but back then he was definitely writing a lot of things in the key of A, and which is, we call it the key of James Beaudry.
There you go. Or the Canadian key.
That's right, the Canadian key, and you can riff on it all night long. You can do like a 15 or 20 minute song in A and just riff on it. So. And it's a happy sounding chord to play things into. Yeah, I think it makes people feel good.
James chimed in again through the James Beaudry Band page. He says Colin is truly a gem. Couldn't be happier to be able to share the stage with him for the last almost 5 years. He said, is he a good count? Is that about right?
Yeah, he's a good count. So I met James. I met him at LB's out in St. Albert, and I was playing a show in 2015 there, and so I met him there, and he was there with another mutual friend of ours, and then a few months later, I guess it was probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 7 months later, he was playing. This was just right when the Fort McMurray fires happened in 2016, and he was doing one of the benefit shows, and he asked me to come play, so I did. And then a couple months after that, he was kind of looking to rebuild his band a little bit. So me and another couple guys that he wrangled up got together, and so basically since September of 2016, we've been sharing the stage fairly regularly. We try and gig at least once a month or twice a month if we can. It's a little bit. It's actually not difficult to get gigs for original bands in Edmonton. It's just more a matter of getting gigs that at least give you enough money for the cost of gas to get to the gig is the issue.
Yeah.
Lots of free gigs for original bands out there, but it's a little bit harder to get paid for them. So, we try and do the best we can, and we have to play for free sometimes or for very little. But it's a lot. Sorry, I'm rambling on a bit, but it's a lot different for a cover band like the other band, my band that I have, the Colin McDonald Band. I mean, we're able to get paid for our time because we play covers that people are used to listening to and they want to dance to and things like that, and they've heard many times before. Yeah. So there's a little bit more of a demand for that, and people are a bit more willing to cough up, shall we say?
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing those things. And let me see here. James, actually, before that, Tony Rufo says, "Good whiskey is a thing. Can get into all night long." He says, "Very cross-genre."
Yeah, good whiskey and guitar playing, they go hand in hand.
Oh yeah.
And,
okay.
Well, for sure. I mean, me and Tony have tested that theory on numerous occasions, actually.
Yeah. And what is it? 17 minutes and 3 seconds on Harley Quinn last show. James chimed in again. So tell us, my friend, in terms of your playing with different bands and whatnot, what's your favorite thing about being in a band? I'm just going to surprise you a little bit with that question, which seems out of the blue. Well, what's the most energizing or the most the thing that you appreciate most about being in a band versus, let's say, playing by yourself? You do some of those as well, solo acts and whatnot. But what is it about the band thing that resonate with you?
So playing in a band, it means that you are dependent upon, but also working with other people, other human beings who are also creating things in the moment. Right? Even if you know a song really well and you practice it a million times, you're still creating that thing in the moment. And when you get a band, 3 or 4 or 5 guys that are all in the same, I mean, it's a cliche, but the same wavelength, shall we say, right? And kind of all going in the same direction. It's an amazing thing. It's like they call it chemistry sometimes. It's a feeling of being a part of something bigger. So it's like, I guess you could say, how does that term go? You're bigger than the sum of the parts or whatever. The whole is larger than the sum of its parts. And that's really what a band is you get, 3 people or 4 people or 5 people doing something. And all of a sudden you get this huge thing happening that's way more than any one of those could, make together or individually. I think I like that part of it. I like because you can be an individual within a band, but you also are completely dependent on that band to do what you're doing. Because I can't, when I'm in a band, I can do a lot, way different stuff, way more stuff, way like more creativeness in playing than I can on my own. Because on my own, it's just me, and I have to maintain, the rhythm and maintain the feel of a song or a piece that I'm playing. Whereas in a band, I can depend on those guys to hold it down while I go off into space somewhere, and then I can come back and let them go off into space or whatever. So there's that side of it. But ultimately, when you're in a band and you play live, because I mean, live performances is my thing. That's where I really love what I do as a musician. And that's for the people. Like I've always said, it doesn't matter how many people are in front of you. If you've got one person that's loving what you're doing, that it's worth it right there. That's why you're there. That's what you're doing it for. If you have 5,000 or 10,000 loving what you're doing, that's even better. But all you need is one person really digging what you're doing on that stage, and you'll play for that one person all night long sometimes. Like you can have a room full of people, and if everybody's kind of, they're not really into it, but they get that one guy or that one woman that's really digging what you're doing, then it's completely worth going out there and doing it.
Yeah. So, in other words, audience and viewers and dancers out there, when you really get involved in the experience and really, dance along and involve in the conversation and really show your appreciation, you are co-creating that experience for yourself. So, if you want a better evening out, be part of the solution, be part of the kind of interactions. It sounds like.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, and I like that because I think some people get that, and a lot of people don't. And it doesn't. If you're not into it, you're not into it. Nobody's going to force you. But I think if you go out and see a live band, even if they suck, be a part of what they're doing, because they might suck because there's no energy in the room. There's nobody's into what they're doing. Maybe they're not well rehearsed, or maybe they're having an off night, or whatever it is, right? Like if they're out there putting themselves out on that stage, they're likely putting as their best foot forward on that evening, and you give them a little bit back, and it doesn't take much. You just gotta, if you give a little bit back to what they're doing, that creates like an energy loop that you can feel. That as a musician on stage, you can 100% feel when people start giving you their energy, their attention. And it's not about attention necessarily. We're not up there to get the attention and the accolades and the, oh, you guys are amazing and awesome. We're not up there for that. What we're up there for is like this common human feedback loop. It's like the band. It's like playing with the band. You get that like that connection with another human being or several human beings. And when people are up there dancing, or they're standing in front, watching you and listening to you, you're getting that direct connection with that other person. And that's what, humans are all about: social interaction. That's where we thrive. And so when we get that, that loop of social interaction going on, where we know that we're connected, it makes a big difference in your ability to play and your ability to perform when you know that somebody's appreciating it.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, your friend and bandmate chimed in again here, Mr. James Beaudry, James Beaudry Band. He says, Colin is truly the best part of the band, in my opinion. And he said this to me several times before, outside of this meeting, and in fact on air in his own interview. So he feels that way, my friend.
Yeah, he's got to stop saying that, though, because all my hats aren't going to fit anymore if it keeps going on like that.
Let me ask you another question, my friend. Do you have a highlight of your career? Can you just go in that, kind of mental Rolodex and go through all of the times? Is there one memory that resonates top of mind right now that you want to share? You say that was definitely a highlight.
Man, there's been so many.
Maybe just share one.
Oh man, yeah. You should ask me this question yesterday. I would have had a good answer for you.
so
I've been fortunate to have played in a lot of really great places and with some really, really great people. I can kind of give you a rundown of some of the highlights that
sure.
sort of stick out in my mind, and one of them is I played at Taste of Edmonton one year, and now playing music at Taste of Edmonton is, it's not like you're playing for the Queen or something like that, but it's kind of cool if you've never done it before. The first time is cool.
Yeah.
And this is back when Taste of Edmonton was downtown, and I think it was in Churchill Square or whatever it was. So it was big. There was like 5,000 people there Saturday afternoon or something.
Yeah.
And the band I was in was I think we were calling ourselves Next Addiction, as opposed to Next Edition, which is the Kenny Rogers band, but Next Addiction. And it was a female-fronted band we did some country and we did some funk and some rock and stuff. And I was actually playing acoustic rhythm at the time, which for me was outside of my wheelhouse, but it was fun. Anyway, it was a memory, because I just remember being 35 degrees in the summertime, and up on that stage about 6 o'clock at night, and the sun is blazing through, and there's about 4,000 people kind of hanging around there. And I think not a highlight as in, wow, that was the best gig I ever had. More of a highlight is like, this is this is kind of cool because I'd never done that before.
It was a novelty. It was a novelty.
It was a novelty for me. Yeah, for sure. And I've done, big gigs since then and stuff like that. But at that first one was kind of a novelty, and I'm going, wow, this is pretty cool that I'm, up here in front of this many people. And Taste of Edmonton was kind of like one of those touchstone things that a lot of bands wanted to be able to play at and things like that back then. So
it's a community highlight, really, right?
Yeah, it's a community highlight for sure. When you play there, a lot of people see you. A couple others, there's kind of two other ones that I kind of think about. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in 2 different CD release shows. The first one was with Corey Ray Lee, the lead singer of Next Addiction. She was releasing a CD, so we did that at Cowboys back when Cowboys was open.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is the James Beaudry Band CD release party, which was in April of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that at Titan Studios, and that, very memorable occasion. We recorded the night. It was memorable up to a point.
Mm-hmm.
Had the Southern Comfort and the beer going on, so at a certain point I don't remember very much, but we got through the show and it was fun. So a couple things like that. There's, when you play with 3 bands that are gigging all the time, or multiple bands that are gigging, it's like, well, you play so many different shows. It's hard to kind of pinpoint one particular show where you went, wow, that was something else.
Yeah. So tell me, my friend, you have been essentially full-time musician for a while. Tell us about that decision. Was it a carefully thought out decision, or was it just a matter of, this is what I got to do, there's no question asked?
Well, technically, I guess right now I'm a full-time musician, but I was working full-time. I worked for a property management company for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Full-time. I was on call 4 hours a day, 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And also doing the music thing along with that.
Wow.
So I stopped the property management thing last year, but a year ago in March. So it's been a little over a year now.
Yeah.
And so I've started focusing on more of the music thing and playing in bands and doing gigs and stuff. So I guess you could say I'm a full-time musician right now.
Yeah.
And
cool.
The decision was definitely based on, not wanting to be tied to my phone for 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Anymore. And a bunch of other things, happened in that whole scenario, but just decided to do that, and not sure at this point if I'm going to go back into full-time work, or if I'm still going to try to do more with music, because there's always things like teaching lessons and doing a lot of online things that you can do now with
there
lessons.
There you go, friends. Having heard that, if you have a need that Mr. Colin McDonald can help you with, I'm looking at the James Beaudry Band comment here, and you guys look just like, I got to tell you though, when I came to Canada, there was 2 phenomenons that I noted. One was you guys talk so fast, and the other one is you all look the same to me back then. Just kidding. It was true. It was true.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Folks out there, if you have some musical needs that you think James might be able to, Colin might be able to help you with, feel free to reach out, and maybe there's a good fit there somewhere. Sounds like you're in a little bit of a transition. Prior to COVID, you've made that transition, but as you continue on here with COVID and everything else, sounds like you're open to new concepts to kind of fill in some of the capacity that you may have here.
Yeah, I think so. It's always, they call it struggling musician for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's depending on what you're doing. I know maybe 3, maybe 4 people that make their living when I say doing music or playing music or music related things.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been able to sort of carve out a certain way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's like the one-man band kind of thing, right? Where they're traveling around in a van and with all their gear, and they go to a place, and they set up their computer and their audio system, and they mm-hmm. jam along to backing tracks or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which I think that's really cool that people can do that, and I've done it before, and I actually really like sitting in a bar or club or somewhere and listening to those guys because they're usually very, very entertaining.
Yeah,
Um,
and they're
so
usually very good with the music as well. They spent a lot of time rehearsing and all that.
yeah, they're usually bang on. They've got all their tracks set up really well. They sound good, and they're good players. But those are the guys that can go out and basically make as much or just about as much as a full band would make in the same scenario, but for
Right.
one guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And so financially it makes more sense to do that. And
Yeah.
and a lot of times you're playing in small little places where they can't have a band there, or they don't want a band there, or they want to control the volume, or whatever the case may be. And you can do all that as a single person. You're not relying on a drummer to play softly or whatever the case is, right? You get acoustic drums in any room. It's like you've got to play to that level. Unless you
Yeah.
have an electronic drums or something where you can turn everything down or go all in-ear monitors or something like that. It could be a little bit difficult to be coffee house level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a musician, especially as a rock guitarist, like who wants to play in a coffee house? But you know what? They pay.
Yeah.
They'll pay you money to come play for them, and if you can mold or adapt your setup and your sound and your song selection to the venue that you're going to play in, then you get a lot more gigs. And if you're willing to do that, you can play all the time. You can play 4, 5, 6 times a week and make a little bit of money, and you can live off that. You can actually pay your mortgage and buy groceries off that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for the majority of guys out there, and you have to be pretty talented too. You have to be
Mm-hmm.
you have to be pretty skilled in your profession to be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of guys just they've got day jobs and stuff like that, and they do this thing on the weekend, and hopefully they get a few dollars or whatever from it, but they're not overly concerned about getting paid. It's more of a recreational hobby thing for them.
You bet.
So
You bet.
there's a lot there. There's a lot more meat to that whole conversation. We can get into it if you want, but it goes back and forth as far as can a guy make a living on music these days? Yeah, you can, but you gotta have like 3 or 4 different streams. You can't just be in a band and make a living anymore. There was a time when that was the case back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, early 2000s. You're a good guitar player in a house band or in a good top 40 band or whatever. You could in Edmonton, make enough money to live on and survive and have a decent wage, because there was all these hotels and taverns and all these things that were open, and they had live bands every night of the week and things like that.
Yeah.
And the money was as good or better than what they pay 30 years down the road today. So,
in other words, today you almost have to be an artist and an entrepreneur of sort. Really.
You got to be a business person for sure. Like you have to get out there and drum up your work. If you get an agent, that's a bonus. But you got to go out there and drum up the work and do all your own advertising and promotion and all that kind of stuff. And you've got to put that product out there. It's like running your own business essentially. So you have to be good at that, and then you also have to be a good musician to back that up. So it's hard to have both. It's hard to be a good musician and a good businessman at the same time.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you a different question. Back to the challenge that brought on by your sight lost and being blind there. What's the biggest, maybe 1 or 2 lessons that you learned through that journey? Are there a few lessons that you want to share with our viewers about how that journey of dealing with sight loss have sort of resonated with you in a couple of lessons that really help you in life?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is, don't use any excuse to not do things. In other words, if you have a disability or you have something in your life, don't use it as an excuse to fail. Don't let yourself fail because of an excuse. I'm not wording that correctly. But basically, if you have a disability and you sit on the couch and go, I can't do that because I'm this, and I can't do that because I'm that, or I'll never succeed at this because of that. don't do that. Just go out and try it, and
Mm-hmm.
you may surprise yourself what you can do. And that applies for anybody with or without a disability.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are afraid to fail is what it is, and never ever be afraid to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I always use the example of Colonel Sanders, right? And he went out and he tried to sell his chicken recipe or get somebody to pick it up, what was it, 1,000 times or 999 times or something like that, and kept going and kept going and kept going. And he was turned down. He was thrown out. He was spat upon and everything else like this. And finally, somebody took it, and look what happened. KFC.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows KFC.
Yeah.
That's just one story. And I think successful people and smart people often push themselves to keep trying over and over. Now, when you have a disability, it just compounds that feeling sometimes of, oh, I'm just going to fail, or, oh, I can't do that because how am I going to do that? Well, figure out how you're going to do it. Figure out the logistics of something and the technicalities, and just go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nobody out there saying you can't do it. The only person saying that a lot of times is yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, for instance, I was like I said earlier, I was lucky that I had parents and family and friends and people around me that never told me that I couldn't do something just because I was blind, or told me that, or wouldn't show me something, or wouldn't help me learn something.
Mm-hmm.
I was hunting and fishing when I was, a kid, and
Mm-hmm.
shooting guns and riding snowmobiles and riding motorcycles on my own, and jet skis and doing all this kind of stuff that all the other kids were doing. And nothing stopped me from doing whatever it was that I felt like doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's stood me in good stead for sure in my life. And I think that's a really good lesson for a lot of people to throw away your excuses or your feelings of inadequacy, because at the end of the day, you are the only one in control of doing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not exactly control of destiny, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe necessarily that we have a destiny per se. That's my personal opinion, that we're not destined for something, but we personally can control where we go. We
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to decide what it is that's going to happen in our future.
Mm-hmm.
We can't predict that future necessarily, but we can set things in place and make things happen that will steer what happens in the future to a much greater extent than if we just sit back and let things go as they will. And that, a lot of that is that big difference between extrinsic and intrinsic stuff, and what's that word? What are the words I'm looking for? When you everything, there's people that will look to the outside and say, okay, I can control everything on the outside and I can control everything on the inside, and I won't worry about what I can't control. And then there's people who will blame everything on the outside for what they can't control on the inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you a different question before showing maybe another quick video here. So as you think about your musical kind of journey and your guitar playing, your singing, was there one awesome kind of insight that really propelled your musicianship or your playing or your singing? Are there a couple of those kinds of awesome nuggets that you can share as a musician to fellow musicians or other who might not be into music? What are a couple of kind of lessons that you learned along the way about music?
I think it's similar to what I said before. Even in music, is that I see a lot of people who pick a guitar up and they want to learn guitar, or they tried to learn guitar as a kid, and it was either too hard or they just weren't able to get past a certain point. And it's like you just got to keep pushing. You just got to keep pushing where you are and learning different things, and always go with what you like the most. In other words, if you're going to learn the guitar, you're going to start playing or be a musician or be a singer, sing and play stuff that you like to listen to. Don't try and go and learn a bunch of theory on the piano or learn Mozart or Bach or anything like that, stuff that nobody really listens to under the age of 50, or 80 or whatever. Always go for something that you really like to hear, because you're much more likely to want to play it or sing it if you like it. And that's what I do in music, is that I don't like, there's no reason that I need to play something I don't like.
Yeah. In other words, play to your emotions and motivation and just feelings. In other words, satisfy yourself first as a musician.
100%. So that's the other thing, is that as a musician, you do have to satisfy yourself. You have to be satisfied with what you're doing, 100%. Otherwise, you're just not going to do it. I mean, once you as a musician, an accomplished musician, you can certainly go through the motions if required. If you're a hired gun in a band, for a night, and you don't really like the material, but you have the skill to perform it, to pull it off, then you might have to suspend your own personal satisfaction. But at the end of the day, the best performances come from those who are the most satisfied with what they're doing. So for sure, you have to satisfy yourself.
Yeah, and frankly, if you're not satisfied, you're not going to be able to learn and sustain. But in their long career, having to do some of those along the way is part of paying the bills, part of paying your dues, and whatever have you. But if you're trying to get into music and trying to get good at something, that's not the time to go through some kind of things that you don't love, like you say, right?
Yeah, you can't make. I don't think you should ever make music too intellectual either. I think, like you said, you made a good point about emotion and feelings and things like that. Because music really is all about the emotion and the feelings. It's not about mathematics, although it can be. You can break it down into mathematics, but at the end of the day, when you hear music, it's about how it makes you feel, and how it makes you think, and the reaction that you have to that, and I think it's important that you don't sterilize music. And I think a lot of times music is made sterile, especially for kids, for young people that, parents have good intentions and say, oh, I want you to learn the piano, or I want you to learn music. And so they go and they have to learn the theory, and they have to learn how to play, four Elise or something like that on piano. It's like, yes, now you're just going through the motions. You're learning the physical skill, the physical mechanical skill, and you're learning the intellectual part of it, but you're not learning music. You're not truly becoming a musician. You're just, going through the motions. And that's never fun, because you're not satisfying yourself or anybody else at that point. Yeah. I think, if you like a particular song and you want to play it, if you want to play a Nickelback song, go play a Nickelback song, go learn it, If you love Adele, go learn an Adele song, because you're going to get way, way more out of learning an Adele song that you love than you are out of learning, something really complicated and theoretical, like a piece by Bach or Mozart, Sure, if you learn that complicated piece, you can say, oh, I accomplished this. But at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, but are you ever going to play it again after you play it?
Hey, I want to play another clip, and then we're going to wrap up the conversation with some more comments and stories from you, my friend. So I hope this is okay to play this clip. It's from a little while ago, and we'll see if you recognize this. In terms of how long ago, roughly speaking, it was... how long ago was this? 5 years ago. So this is looking back 5 years. And I'm just going to hit play here, my friend. And Very cool.
Cool. So
Yeah.
that I'm assuming that's off the YouTube channel, right?
It's on your Facebook, and it was Trista Lee that posted it 5 years ago on your Facebook page.
So that one, if it's the same one, that's from LB's, and that's the night I actually met James. Yeah,
Cool.
James Beaudry. So, and that's the night James Beaudry met Trista, and then the rest is history.
There you go. Yeah. I think they celebrated an anniversary or, anyway, I follow them on Facebook there as well. But so tell us, my friend, as we wrap this conversation here, are there stories or insights that you want to share that we haven't gotten to yet, my friend? We want to hear from you. Any sort of unique insights that you might want to share? Is there a funny story?
Yeah, I mean, there's always funny stories. I always I'd like to find the entertainment in many different situations, and I think it's a bit of a coping mechanism for me because, it's like that old cliche, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. So I think a lot of times I find amusement in things, and my girlfriend says I'm like a 12-year-old sometimes, but that's okay. We all are, and it's. I just find many different situations and people quite amusing, and going through life and meeting different people and things like that. It's cool. I don't know. I mean, other things. It's I think that you should always try and find the amusement in life. Sort of the words of wisdom here, but I think that going through life being upset is not a good thing. It's like I've always said too that it takes a lot more energy to be upset and mad and frustrated and angry and irritable than it does to be happy and not worry too much about things. It takes a lot more energy to be stressed than it does not to be stressed. And so if you're feeling like you're always out of energy and you have nothing to give, it's like because you're stressed and worrying about everything way too much, and you're using up all your daily bandwidth on things that don't matter, because we all have a certain amount of bandwidth per day that our brains can handle. And if we're using up all that bandwidth on things that really don't matter, like, who's doing what on Facebook or what's happening in politics or, who said what to who and what is, taking offense for different things and getting stressed out over what you can't control. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yes, for a funny story. That wasn't really a funny story, was it?
No. I asked for both, and you started with a really a poignant, kind of very important aspect. We can go to funny story if you have one, but let me just, before we go there, I do agree very much, and so much so that I've been known to say things like, if you want to be more successful and happier, just be more selective about what you care about.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think selectivity is not a bad thing, especially in today's sort of society. And I mean, when I say today's society, I mean everything's changing, but we're quite overwhelmed with things in our modern society, whether it's advertising or different points of view, or we're living in an age now where people are able to offer their points of view to a very, very wide range of wide audience on social media, much more so than we've ever seen in history before. Everybody has the capability of saying what they think, and what ends up happening is that you get a lot of conflicting opinions and ideas and what people might call facts, but a lot of that's conflicting, and so it's a cause of stress and anxiety for sure. But you can, like, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, you can control all that. You as a person can control 100% how much you buy into what somebody else is saying, how much you read what they're saying, how much interaction you have with somebody like that. You can totally be selective, and there's nothing wrong with being selective, and oftentimes it's to your benefit.
Hey,
so
Bruce,
it goes back to that control thing. Like I always say, like, and a lot of people don't understand that, that ability to control what you can control. Don't worry about what you can't control.
Mr. Bruce Hall chimed in here. He says, I've only managed to see you a couple of times, Colin, but it was great every time, he said. And then Sean Parks chimed in again and said, if you can't find, let me just get at the beginning here. If you can't find something funny in a situation, then it's something serious shit going on down. Even then, you can find something funny about it if you look hard enough. So, I mean, again, the sentiment here is that part of life is managing our energy, and fun energy and funny energy tends to be pretty productive and pretty healthy, and negative and toxic energy tends to be pretty negative, pretty perhaps harmful and unhealthy. So we just have to kind of understand what energy we're feeding, what energy we are multiplying or generating, I suppose.
Yeah, it's both, right? It's like it's what we're generating and also what we are most apt to receive or to cling on to, I guess.
Yeah.
I think people that give off negative energy also are drawn to negative energy, if you will. So it's like that loop, that vicious circle where the more you give off, the more you're drawn to others as well.
Yeah.
Because you'll notice that, happy, positive energy people are typically surrounded by other people that have a lot of positive energy.
Hey, there's a thing called the law of attraction.
Yep.
Do you believe in that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, it's funny, there's a lot of attraction, but it's like birds of a feather flock together, but then they say opposites attract. So which one are you going to believe?
Yeah. Well, life is complex, right? Life is complex. So tell us, my friend, as we wrap this up here, what would be your advice to our folks out there with COVID here? We're all dealing with COVID here. How are you doing it, my friend? And how might you suggest it to anybody who might be looking for new ideas on how to make it through this COVID time, which will be a while. It's not going to be done next month or next week, so it'll be a little while here. What are some ideas that you have to share?
Yeah, so like generally speaking or musically?
Both of them.
Okay. I think that, for this household, there's been positives and negatives, but mostly positives actually that have kind of come out of this whole thing, that, we are spending more time together. We're eating at home a lot more, what I mean? Stuff like that. Like, we typically used to eat out 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, and, that spend a lot of money doing that. That was kind of our entertainment. And then now, of course, with COVID, we weren't doing that for 3 months, and it's kind of carried over to even now that everything's back open. So I think, that's a positive thing. I think just finding things to do that don't involve, sitting on Facebook all day or playing a video game all day. I think there's more important things to do with your time, whether it's, I don't know, renovating your house or learning a new language or learning how to play a new, a guitar or play music, or learning new songs that you've never played before, or like just, put all that extra energy that you have, because you're literally sitting at home doing nothing now instead of out there running around, in the, what I call the rat race, spinning your wheels. Nobody's spinning their wheels anymore. So, you got to put that energy towards something else. Otherwise, you're just going to, I think there is a thing of too much energy, and if you get too much energy going on that isn't expended properly. How I've coped with it. Well, I've built up my woodworking shop. So I've got one side of my garage is all woodworking stuff, and I've been tinkering around with that. So that helps me to, and especially during the full lockdown, it was good to be able to just go into the garage and tinker, even if I'm not necessarily building something that day. It's like, okay, I got, set up the machines, or tweak this or tweak that, or build something small, or just go out to the garage and listen to music and hang out and figure out what kind of projects I'm going to do. And I think
it sounds like it reconnects you and it grounds you a bit.
Yeah, it totally does. Because, I like a little bit of that sort of, I guess people call it me time these days, but like a little bit of time on my own to, just to kind of figure things out and reconnect and not, be too, it's just me out there, me and the dog, we're just hanging out. So that's really good for me. Interestingly enough, I hardly pick the guitar up for 3 months. I picked it up maybe twice,
Mhm.
which you'd think that's very odd for a guy like me that plays all the time, but
Mhm.
it was difficult to not play with the bands because like we were like literally shut down for 3 months. We didn't have any rehearsals here. Nobody was over,
Yeah.
and it was really, really, really tough because I'm so used to playing in bands, and it was tough for me to play on my own. But
Yeah.
I eventually started to do that. So
I want to show a quick clip here. It's just literally less than a minute, my friend. And this is
Mhm.
with your Mindwiser, who you said as a group you do a lot of writing and recording more so than
Mhm.
live performances. But here's a live clip here from I don't know where, but there's a whole bunch of CKUA kind of in the front of the stage here. That might remind you where it was. It seems like it might have been an outdoor tent. In fact, you were inside a tent, it looks like. I'm going to hit play here.
so it's okay. I'll
Go
tell you
ahead.
what it is after.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's that one is at Waynestock in Drumheller, and that
Oh,
was
cool.
last year. I
Yeah.
think it was August or September. Yeah, we drove down. We got invited to play at Waynestock, and we drove down there, and it was a really, really good time. And it's a funny one because it was like we were on at like 11:30 in the morning, so it was a bit early for us, but we had a really good time.
Cool. Let me hit play here and we'll enjoy it for a few seconds because it's a very short clip. So let's make it happen here. Cool. So
Yeah,
that's kind of country side of things, and
that's
I love it that you have the telly there in this particular
yeah.
clip.
Yeah, it's so that's actually that heaviest song we do in Mindwiser. It's funny that
Okay.
clip's
Yeah.
on there. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so the drummer there is actually Tyson Wells, who's in the Colin McDonald Band as well,
Hmm.
and he does double duty there with CMB and Mindwiser. But yeah, it was a really fun time. We played a set there, and of course we were hoping to go back this year, but it's been canceled, so we're not going back. But maybe next year we'll have a chance to go back there. They have it's a really cool festival actually down in Wingstock. They have
Hmm.
it's at the Last Chance Saloon and Hotel there,
Nice.
and it's kind of out in the land there a little bit, not too close to anything, and they
Hmm.
have the big tent set up there, which is kind of the beer garden, and then there's or not the beer garden, it's just a big tent, and then there's a beer garden behind there as well with another stage. So they have two different stages set up for that event, and people come down and camp there, and it's a fairly small event. It's not a ton of people, but it's really, really cool. They get some great bands down there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my friend, as we wrap this up, do you have? I'm going to ask you for a different thing, and that is, do you have 3 words that you like to share with our viewers as a way to kind of summarize this conversation, summarize your perspective? 3 independent words that are top of mind on life and music in general.
Hmm. 3 words.
Words.
Yeah, I've never been one. Been one to be able to make things brief. It's succinct. Yeah, no. I always had trouble with that in college and high school too. It's like I gotta break this down into like 10 pages, not 43.
Yeah.
Oh, there goes my phone. Sorry. Make sure that's still on there.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 words. I think laugh.
Okay. Laugh.
Always laugh. Always laugh.
Okay.
Always find humor. Try.
Say that again.
And try. Or try.
Okay. Laugh. Try.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And rock. Rock on.
Laugh, try, and rock. There you go.
I think maybe if I thought about that more, I would have said my 3 words are rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
There you go. But yeah, I think that encapsulates it. I mean,
Cool. Well, wonderful. I really like the laugh one, to be honest. And try is something that we all could do more of for sure. But laugh is a special one because, a lot of other things are pretty obvious, but laugh is a little bit less obvious in terms of perhaps people think that laugh is somehow. I don't think laughter is valued enough, right? So I'm glad you brought that word out, my friend, and thank you for that. So with that, thank you again, Colin McDonald from, let me just repeat here, from several different bands and many bands over the years, but recently, currently, he's working on sort of actively with 3 bands, and that's the Colin McDonald Band, of course, and the James Beaudry Band, and Mindwiser. So those are the 3, and then a number of projects. And you remember from before, folks, he has decided to do away with property management for a little while. So he has a bit more flexibility on how he applies his time these days, not tied down to a phone as much as it was one time in his career. So, there's some opportunity here, folks, for you to perhaps reach out and maybe get Colin to help you with some musical endeavors and maybe some services that he can provide that is of benefit to you during COVID time or otherwise. And so with that, my friend, thank you so much, Colin, for joining us for what turned out to be a good hour and a bit here of conversation. And I'll let you take us out, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Dune. And it's really cool. I like that you're doing these conversations because there's a lot of people out there that you come across at various places, and you know them, or you're familiar with them, but you don't really know what their background is or what they're into or the interesting bits about them. And I think everybody has a story. Everybody's got stories and interesting parts about them that not a lot of people would necessarily know. And I think it's cool that you are able to sit down and have a casual conversation with them and get them to open up a bit and get that kind of stuff out of them and see how they think and stuff. So I really appreciate you doing that, and thank you for having me on. And thank you everybody who showed up here and kept this lively. And yeah, the like you said to me earlier, the hour and a bit just kind of flew by here. So that's really, really good. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Would you believe we've been on for an hour and 45 minutes live, my friend?
Wow.
We've been chatting for an hour and 45 minutes. So on that note, folks, wishing you, each one of you, a wonderful rest of your day and great weekend. And take good care of yourself. Take good care of one another. And as Colin said earlier, laugh and try and rock and roll.
Always love your dog.
Always love your dog. Let me feature the dog there, my friend. Hold on. There's the dog there.
There's a puppy. There's Powell. He's trying to have a sleep, and now he had to come over here and get some loving. You
realize that makes Colin Powell, and that's a name.
Yes. I call him the General. That's part of it. Yeah.
The General.
That was the big joke when we were when I was training with him in the U.S. It was Colin Powell. Yeah.
Hey, can you hold him up a little bit so we can see his face? And a little bit higher. Oh, he's a little shy.
There we go. See? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, my friend. Have a great Friday evening and also a great weekend, Colin. And I'll keep on rock and rolling, as you say.
Keep on rock and roll. Laugh, try, and rock. Love you. See you later. Thanks, man.
Thanks.